Hello there, guys, and welcome to our next class for the fourth unit. This is a class that is part of Beehive School and Ninth High School. Our subject is biology, and we are working on week number 32. Let's go over our presentation, and let's start with our end in mind. The students will be able to imagine and explain the consequences that our ecosystems will suffer in the future by participating in a live discussion. One more time, today we're going to have a dialogue. So please make sure to complete all of the activities so you have a lot of information to talk about during our live session. And here you have our summary of activities. Number 1, read and summarize topic 4.04. Focus a little bit more on pages 6 to 8 and remember to upload your summary to Educativa. Number 2, participate in the live discussion in Zoom. And number 3, take the assessment for topic 4.04. All right, and let's start. So, we're going to talk about topic 4.04, impact on our ecosystems. And industrialization has drastically changed our world. It is based on the constant growth of the human population, which demands more and more resources over time. So, industrialization has been up in our world for around 200 to 300 years. And what happens is that humans started to develop these industries that would actually generate mass amounts of food and mass amounts of resources for human consumption. And the worst problem is that, of course, if we want to produce a lot of resources for the human consumption, then we need to use gigantic amounts of natural resources as well. And, of course, that is going to generate a great impact in our ecosystems. And now, before we continue, you can download the biology notebook from page 1 to keep track of the important information. I really like this notebook because there you are going to find a lot of key concepts as well as questions that you can develop throughout the class. So, of course, you can keep track of the most important information in there. All right, so let's continue. And we are going to talk about the greenhouse effect. It is a natural effect that takes place on Earth when the gases in the atmosphere contribute to the absorption and regulation of heat energy from the sunlight, and supports maintaining ideal atmosphere conditions for life to survive. I have actually heard a lot of people that actually have a misconception of this term, and they believe that the greenhouse effect has been generated by humans. But that is incorrect. The greenhouse effect has been in our atmosphere for hundreds, thousands, and even millions of years right now. And what happens is that, you know that there are a lot of gases that are expulsed from several places around Earth. And at the end, they are going to develop somehow in our atmosphere a barrier that is going to absorb sunlight. And this is necessary because the energy that is absorbed in our atmosphere is going to regulate the temperature in our planet. And of course, this is going to be translated into life surviving and being able to actually coexist in our planet. Because if there is a way higher temperature or a way lower temperature than the one that we have right now in our planet, then life cannot survive. And what I can actually mention is that actually humans are contributing to, let's say, get or provide our planet with a thicker atmosphere. And here we have the greatest problem lays on the overproduction of carbon dioxide and other gases made by humans, which change the general and natural composition of the atmosphere. Thicker layers of gases in the atmosphere are translated into higher temperatures. So, just like I was previously mentioned, the more carbon dioxide that we produce by using a lot of industries to overproduce resources for humans, as well as using petroleum as one of the main resources for transportation, then all of those gases are going to end up in the atmosphere. And of course, the natural composition is going to be affected. Mainly, it is going to get thicker. The thicker it gets, the higher temperatures we're going to get. And of course, then what happens is that due to the greenhouse effect, then more energy is going to be absorbed by our atmosphere, which is translated one more time into higher temperatures. And what's the problem with getting higher temperatures? Well, all of the climate conditions around Earth are going to start varying, and they are going to cause natural disasters that are going to affect even more our ecosystems and, of course, the human life as we know it nowadays. And here we have environmental indicators of change. Scientists track changes in land temperatures, precipitation levels, large storm frequencies, ocean temperatures, sea levels, ocean currents, ocean composition, glacier recession, polar ice levels, animal migration, plant hardiness zones, and flower bloom rates. So there are a lot of indicators that can actually let us know that our environments are changing. And let me give you some pretty clear examples so we can actually understand this a little bit more. So let's talk about the glaciers in the North Pole and in the South Pole. Well, what happens is that a lot of the glaciers that we have right there are actually melting at this moment. And due to that melting, then the sea levels are going to increase. And of course, scientists are theorizing that if the glaciers continue actually melting, what's going to happen is that several coastal regions are going to be floated by the expansion of the sea. And of course, the glaciers are melting because of the greenhouse effect and the overproduction of carbon dioxide that humans have been doing for quite a long time right now. And that will be one of the examples. Another example that I can give you is about the more hurricanes that we have had in the last decade. So, of course, if there is a high amount of evaporation due to high temperatures, then we're going to have mass portions of water or evaporated water. And those massive amounts of water that were evaporated can actually turn into hurricanes. And those hurricanes have actually been proof that our planet is getting hotter and hotter with the time. And of course, when they get to several regions where humans are located at, there is this a high amount of devastation. And those are two pretty clear examples. We can continue as well. And we have catastrophic changes to ecosystems. An earthquake took place on March 11th of 2011. It was followed by a catastrophic tsunami that generated great damage and pollution. The restoration process is long and expensive. This was specifically an earthquake that took place in Japan. And I'm pretty sure that you have watched videos on the internet about how devastating this tsunami was. And another one that is a little bit more actual is that California continues suffering of wildfires. And what happens is that one more time, our planet is getting hotter and hotter every time. And of course, the plantations, the vegetation in general around California, since it is exposed to very high temperatures, what happens is that it is more likely to rain on fire. And exactly that's what's going on right now. I remember that this news was from a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not really sure if the wildfires still continue or not. But one more time, this is because of human activity, because of the overproduction of the carbon dioxide, and it's something that we need to regulate, or this kind of disasters are going to be taking place in all of the world, or I will say even more over the world. And going back to the California wildfires, the more they happen, the less chances, the less chances they have to occurring again. And probably people might say, oh, then that's something good. Because if we can just let it happen, we can just let wildfires happen for a couple of years, and then they are not going to happen anymore. The thing is that what is going to be the natural or the negative impact in the ecosystem in California? Well, it's going to be less vegetation, definitely, and that's the main reason why they have less chances of happening, because there is less vegetation. Less vegetation is going to be translated into less oxygen in the general population, more pollution due to the carbon dioxide and the great amounts that are produced by the cars and many other industries. And of course, all of the fog that you can see right here in the back, all of this smoke is going to go back to the atmosphere, and it is going to continue causing even a higher impact in our ecosystems. So there are many things that can happen, and of course, we need to start being conscious about what's going on with the human activity and auto-regulate it a little bit more. And our impact on ecosystems. And lionfish are typically found in Japan and Australia. Unfortunately, due to the hurricane that impacted an aquarium at South Florida's coast, some of these species were released to the ecosystem. This species is very invasive, so they hunt for local species and crustaceans, drastically reducing their amounts in the environment. So, humans impact a lot the ecosystems because just like in this case, usually humans can actually commercialize with several species from around the world to have in aquariums or just to have them as pets. But what happens if we actually free these new species to the ecosystems? We can have one of the impacts that are mentioned right there, in which the lionfish are hunting for local species, and that is going to totally change the distribution and the flow of energy in the ecosystem. Because what happens is that this species, this lionfish, wasn't actually part of the ecosystem. And it didn't develop naturally to being a hosting lionfish as one of the main species from there. So that is why a lot of species and crustaceans are decreasing in amount. And of course, they can actually even disappear if this isn't regulated. We can also mention human expansion. The growth of our population has pushed us to expand our habitats. This is translated into the other species' habitats. Totally, I have to agree. And I'm pretty sure that if you talk to your parents and you tell them, hey, what was Quetzaltenango like 20 years ago or 30 years ago? I'm pretty sure they are going to tell you that there used to be a lot of nature. I have a friend whose grandmother usually tells stories, and she has told us that when she was a kid, when her grandmother was a kid, most likely, they were actually able to see jaguars around. They were able to see this kind of monkeys and jaguars and a lot of natural species here in Quetzaltenango, which might sound like something crazy, but this was the kind of nature that was here. But because of human expansion, because of all of the houses that have been built, because of all of the forests that were destroyed in order to have industries in there, then these animals have actually gotten extinct from this place. And we continue with our choices. The use of pesticides kill insects that are considered pests, but they can kill many other animals as well. And lastly, our activities. Think about how much trash your family produces every week, every month, and every year. And where does all of that go to? Have you ever wondered about it? I want to give you a personal example. So here in my family, we usually produce 1 or 2 bags of trash every week. All right, now let's multiply those 2 bags of trash for all of the students that we have in our class. In total, we are going to be like 12. So 12 times 2, 24. 24 bags of trash every week. All right, so if we multiply that for 4 times, which are the weeks that we have in a month, what is going to be the result? What if we multiply all of those bags in a month for the ones that we produce a year? And remember that we are only considering the people in our class. So what's going to happen if we include all Guatemala? What happens if we include all America? What happens if we include all of the continents? Quite concerning, right? Think about it. Where does all of that trash go to? Only because we don't see it, it doesn't mean that it only disappears. And trust me that it has a drastic impact in our ecosystems. So that'll be about it for today's lesson. Thank you a lot for coming, guys, and I hope to see you in the live session in a couple of minutes so we can have a little bit more dialogue in this topic. Goodbye, and always take care.